Joshua Wall here with Dan and Carolyn Brown from Dan Brown House Reconstruction. We're here at 220 Sheridan Street in Brantford, Ontario, a recreation build of Mackenzie House in Toronto, Ontario. Let's go inside and have a look. So first things first, why and how did you decide to build this specific home?
A few years back we had bought the house next door, and when we bought it we didn't know that there was a severable lot. What happened was that because it's a side yard as opposed to a backyard, it was a bit tricky. We were able to get the approval to sever, and it's a very small lot. The lot is only 30 by 60. And to find a house that would fit on this footprint became something that we had to do some research on.
So we also did a project on Tollgate Road where we had to tear down an old house and recreate the old house. So we thought, what a great idea. We could reconstruct a historically significant house from scratch. So we started doing some research online, different house styles, significant to Brant County. So then we started looking at the Mackenzie House after somebody suggested that. So we went down to Toronto and we took the tour, it's now a museum. And we fell in love with the house. We liked the architecture of it, the style of it. Mackenzie, so the whole story behind the Mackenzie is that not only was the grandfather of the 10th Prime Minister of Canada, he was also the first mayor of Toronto. At the time it was called York, but Toronto. And he was also the leader of the rebellion of 1837 in Toronto to try and overthrow government ideas. But when that failed, he was exiled to the U.S. On his way to the U.S., he stopped in Brant County to spend time with his supporters and friends here, continued to the U.S., and then when he was pardoned and allowed to come back to Canada, he was moved into which is now the Mackenzie House in Toronto.
And that house was gifted to him from his friends and supporters.
Mm-hmm. So we fell in love with that, so we started doing drawings to rebuild and recreate the Mackenzie House.
So the Mackenzie House in Toronto was a row house. When it was initially constructed, the house had adjoining units to it. And I think it was 1930s, the adjoining units were removed to make room for expansion in the city of Toronto.
But they wanted to keep the original part because of the historical value.
Yeah. And so when you look at the exterior of Mackenzie House, it is bricked on 3 sides and stuccoed on the 4th side, which would have been where the adjoining unit was. And we've recreated that unusual character, that unusual style here at the Mackenzie House in Brantford. When we're in downtown Toronto and you're looking at a 2-story house in downtown Toronto, it doesn't have the same impact as a 2-story house in a suburb in Brantford. I feel the house looks grand here. It looks not so grand when you're around towering buildings around in downtown Toronto.
So that's the why, but tell us about how you built this house.
We've built our lives here in Brantford, and life is about relationships. And so there are many of the trades in which we have worked with for many years, the same people who've become accustomed to the expectation or the way that we build.
Mm-hmm.
We're very hands-on. When we are building, we may want to tweak something. One of the struggles I think that we have is that when we see something on 2-dimensional, a paper drawing, it translates differently into 3D. And once it's live and around you, you kind of come up with other ideas.
Sure. Like when they were in the framing part of the build, we were able to stand upstairs and actually say, and on the main floor to make how we want to make changes. That way we can see it 3D rather than 2D on the paper, where because of doing some of the old renovations, that's what we do. We go in and we get out the old house, and then we say, how do we want to change this? How do we want to make this room bigger or smaller or open concept?
How do we add storage? One of the things that I specifically remember is a main floor closet, and how the doors on that became something that we wanted to implement in the project, and it has to be framed so that it can accommodate that size of material that we have sourced.
So this project has been somewhat unique in itself, other than our 36 other projects, where we were in the middle of a pandemic at the time. At the time, they were able to continue on the outside. We had an existing building permit, but on the inside, we wanted to kind of keep it just ourselves in here. So Carol and I decided that after the drywall, we were going to complete everything else, right down to trim, to the flooring, to the paint, to anything you see. Carol and I installed it, sourced it, and installed it.
What's incredible about the trades that we work with, the bricklayer actually went to Toronto himself and looked at the positioning and the placement, the pattern of the brick. One of the things that he talked about was, you'll note that the front of the house has a pattern laying called Flemish bond, and that is a specific type of pattern that he was able to recreate because he was able to actually see and embrace the project himself.
No, and you can tell by the even the mortar joints are very similar to the Mackenzie House, but then when you start adding on to with the shutters and with the freeze boards and all that types of thing, it all kind of brings it all together and makes it the Mackenzie House on the outside.
Many times the material that we use in a house are sourced and found prior to a build taking place. So we do have a bit of an inventory of materials that we'll draw from.
Oh, okay.
So in this house in particular, I think one of the biggest challenges was the door sizes. The two-piece bathroom on the main floor has a very small door. We needed to frame to that. The doors upstairs have transoms above them, and they also need to be framed special. In order to get that accommodation, we need people to be able to say, this is the door that's going in, build it so that it works, so that it fits, as opposed to, here is the door size, go find a door that will fit. Much of our sourcing of material for our houses is done, we find the stuff first and then work around it.
I don't know if you've ever heard the expression that you could build a house around this. When you see an old object like a door or something like that, and that's what we actually do. We find some materials and think how great it would look in a house. Let's build a house around it. Like even the two front doors on the front of the Mackenzie House that we have here, we source those out early as well because the original Mackenzie House has two full doors, antique doors, and we needed to know that for framing purposes. Which the older doors are a little bit shorter, narrower than a new pre-hung steel door that you would put on the house. We need to custom fit them in ahead of time.
There are features like the windows on the Mackenzie House that we wanted to keep true as well. So the windows are 6/6 is what the term is, meaning that there are 6 panes of glass on the top and 6 panes of glass on the bottom.
So you've built this home from scratch. Tell us about how you captured the look and feel of the original Mackenzie House. How did you source the materials?
So the biggest thing about this Mackenzie House is that it's a raised 2-story house, where actually the ground or the basement is only in the ground 4 feet, and the basement windows are more so out of the ground. So when you're standing in the basement, it's almost like standing on the main floor of a house looking out to the street than you would in a normal basement setting. A lot of the similarities around this house is more on the outside of the house, with windows, shutters, and freeze board, which is the piece underneath the eaves troughs. And also they're called parapet walls. They actually go up higher than the sides of the house where chimneys would be. We did faux chimneys on the house to make it look like chimneys without having the expense of bricking the chimneys from the foundation all the way up to the top.
When you walk into this house, it doesn't feel like you're walking into a new house. There's so many details that make it feel as though it is an old house. There's skill to being able to do that. There's attention to many different details that need to be looked at and implemented in order to get that look.
In a lot of the older houses, there's big tall baseboards. Now we're custom making baseboards to make it look like the old trim around the windows. We're replicating that. We're using old doors and doorknobs, old hardware, old lights and that sort of thing. There's a lot of new things, like obviously we're using drywall, we're not using plaster. But yeah, we know some of the tricks to make it look old, and we sometimes use old to make it look right.
One of the things about the original Mackenzie house and many old houses is that the rooms were segregated. You had smaller rooms. There were fireplaces in each of the rooms, and you would close the doors to those rooms to keep the heat in, and you would stay warm.
But now with today's mechanics in the houses, you can blast all those walls wide open and you can live open and free compared to back in the day.
One of the things on this floor that I really like is the bulkheads, which hide the mechanical highways of the house. So you have the electrical, you have the plumbing, you have the heating. One of the things that we do is one of the bulkheads has the mechanics, and the rest of the room is just for balance. It is a complete design feature to continue the bulkhead throughout the rest of the room.
Other things that we've done on the outside, other than keeping it to form to the Mackenzie house, we've also added a flagpole on the outside, which we like to do on all of our builds and rebuilds. We've also added a light over the front door just to keep up with today's building codes. The original Mackenzie house had a light on a light post near the sidewalk, but it didn't really light the front door very much, so we bought a very old cast iron light and hung it up over the front door.
So how and where did you source the materials?
We've sourced the materials from many different places. We do a lot of our shopping online with Facebook Marketplace and Kijiji. We know retailers, both sides of the 401, from Windsor to Ottawa. We've shopped north and south of the Great Lakes. We've created relationships with many of the retailers in these small stores that are called architectural salvage stores.
Which basically they collect old building materials or building parts, and then they sell them to be reused in new houses or old houses that are falling apart.
An example of architectural salvage that we've implemented in this house would be the doors on the china cabinet here. They are old industrial windows that when we buy them, they don't have glass, they don't have hinges. So we have to rework things in order to make them so that they work. Then we can build around it. Mm-hmm. We built the china cabinet around the glass door for size.
Or we find old lights, we need to rewire the old lights. On the custom island in the kitchen, we'd have a cast iron foot rail. We've done a few of them now, and they've come from different applications, from old historic post corners. We've also have, on this one island in particular, it's a fireback from the 1800s, a cast iron with a design in it, with a crown that we've made right into the raised panel of the island as a feature for the house.
When you get into the interior of the house, then that's where we're able to implement some of the creative ideas that we can come up with. Mm-hmm. The crown molding is sourced from, we bought that off of Kijiji, and we travel a little bit to go and pick the stuff up so that we can see what's in the garage, so that we can see what's in their backyard. If there's anything else that, maybe someone wasn't necessarily thinking about selling, but they have a buyer there, and so they're a little more motivated to take a look at.
Only because we use a lot of unique things in the houses that people don't realize, that the unique things that they don't use anymore or want anymore, that we could use in a feature build like this.
When we build new old. in order to get that, one of the things that we're looking at is sourcing materials that will fit that criteria.
We'd like to call it building old, and then we also like to call it new heritage, where there's a lot of old houses that are heritage houses. Now, hopefully one day this will be a heritage house, but right now it's new heritage. And we try and use old materials on top of the new materials that you're unable to see within the walls of the framing or the drywall. Everything else is more of an art form on top of that, with the doors and the trim, the custom door knobs and that sort of thing.
It really is an art form and a passion. Like you can't go there every weekend to various stores if you don't love it, which we love.
And some of the stores are huge stores to walk through, and you almost have to go in with a mindset of I'm looking for a doorknob today, because if you don't, you go down a rabbit hole and you'll be lost for hours within. So it's,
and he has been in the rabbit.
I have been there before, so it's best to go in with one thing in mind.
So tell us about some of your favorite features here on the main floor.
I think my favorite feature would be the open concept of the house. The original Mackenzie House was closed in, and it was all separate rooms and kind of tight spaces, where we've opened it up from front to back just to see from one end to the other end. Another one was our custom kitchen island. It was kind of up to date, modern times for modern kitchens, where families like to sit around the island and cook all together and eat together.
The crown molding in the house and the trim work around the windows and the baseboard, all of that are things that Dan and I have worked together to design and to install in this house and in our other projects as well. We've certainly drawn on our history of and our experience to create an expertise in the design of these features. Sometimes it almost seems as though we're working backwards, and we tell the drawer, we tell the electrician, this is something that we're going to be hanging a light that weighs more than other lights, and so there has to be special features that are implemented in order to make that design feature work.
Mm-hmm.
Another feature on the main floor that I really like are the knobs on the kitchen cabinets. That's kind of a bit of a signature thing on my part, that each one of them is a different knob. It adds
and unique.
And unique, and they're different colors, so it does add something brighter to the house. When we choose a paint color in the house, we try to pick something that's fairly neutral so that our stuff pops against it.
Not really designing with paint colors, we're designing with everything we add on top of the paint after that. So one of the features that we have inside the house is our bathroom doorknob on the main floor. It's a cast iron lion's head doorknob to go with William Lyon Mackenzie. Another special feature that we have over our island are the explosion-proof lights. Explosion-proof lights are more of an industrial use back in the day, where they didn't want any sparks to escape the light from the electricity to cause an explosion. So it was all encapsulated within the light, and they have a unique look to them, and use them in features over the islands. When we started building the Mackenzie House, the framing was going up, most of the main floor was framed up. The original Mackenzie House, when you walk in the front door, it's all closed in. There's walls around it. You walk upstairs and you go through another set of doors. Where our house we wanted to be open concept. You'd walk in the front door, and as soon as the first time I walked into the house when we were building it, I wanted to see the whole open concept of the house when I walked in, and we knew right away we had to have the glass wall in there, not to obstruct any view on the main floor.
That did have an engineered element to it. We had to get special approval on the materials that were used, and signed off by engineers.
Mm-hmm. Tempered glass and the proper supports.
For safety.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we're here on the second floor. Tell us about some of your favorite features up here, or something you'd like to show off.
I guess my favorite feature would be the open concept of the upstairs. with the cathedral ceilings, as the Mackenzie House was a 3-story building, and when we decided to build it, we changed it to 2 stories so that we could have the cathedral up here on the 2nd floor. The dormer windows shine light through into the hallway, where we've added extra windows inside the hallway to let the light in. Other features of upstairs are we've used all old doors up here and throughout the house. Upstairs more unique, using doors that have transom windows over top of them, with the actual mechanics that you raise and lower the windows as needed. But we got these right from the get-go at the beginning because they're approximately 2 feet taller than a regular door, and that all had to be pre-planned into the framing of the interior walls of the house to be able to fit those doors in.
Having the cathedral ceilings really lends an additional design feature for lighting. In the master bedroom, we're able to install 3 separate lights, and these were big box store lights. These are not antique lights, and they we were able to get 2 matches that were the smaller version, and then one in the dormer part of the room is the larger version. It kind of becomes a bit of a chandelier room. Some of the artwork on the walls is chandeliers as well.
But she forgot to mention the other chandelier, which is in the walk-in closet right here. That it's probably about 10 feet by 10 feet. The original plan of the upstairs was to be 3 bedrooms, but we brought it down to 2 bedrooms so that we could open up the space to have the big walk-in closet, the bigger bathroom, and then we've added the 3rd bedroom down in the basement.
But the walls are so tall on the second story. The bathroom, I wouldn't describe it as being a particularly large bathroom, but because of the height of the room, it really opens up the space. The bathroom is in the middle of the house, and because this was a row house, there were no windows on either side of the house. So the fact that the ceilings are so high in that particular room, with no windows, lighting becomes an important piece of the puzzle in that room as well.
Its bathroom, like she said, was in the middle of the room, which is the tallest part of the house. So we took advantage of that with our tiling. We've extended the shower tiling up another maybe 4 or 5 feet up, and had a custom shower curtain made just to add to the height of the room, so that when you walk in with a large painting in there, it almost looks like a New York loft type bathroom.
I do love the niche that we added in the shower. That was a complete afterthought, and when we were installing the tile, we sort of came to the realization that we could add that feature relatively easily.
Easy, she says. It was just a matter of cutting out some drywall and doing a little reframing, and then some fancy tile work. But other than that, it's great. I've always wanted one, and I'm glad she has come to that realization as well. So in the past few houses, we've added a laundry room on the 2nd floor. If it was a 2-story house, just for today's living, all the laundry is created up on the 2nd floor with your clothes. So we put laundry rooms on the 2nd floor, and also adding a floor drain in case there's ever a problem. In this laundry room, we decided to add a couple old French doors so that you could actually see the laundry room and not hide what's behind the doors. These 2 doors were taken from one of our last projects that because we opened concept houses, we didn't need the extra doors, so we've saved them, and for this purpose, we've used them on the laundry room.
The color of the paint on those doors, when we originally salvaged them from the previous project, the paint was peeling off. So they were painted a beige color, and then the paint as it was peeling off revealed this beautiful shade of blue. And we brought the doors in to try and get them color matched, and
carrying the whole door to get paint matched.
But the paint matches that were coming back weren't coming back the right color, and so I actually brought in this,
The whole thing.
into the paint store to get color matched, and I'm quite happy with that color.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll use that color in other houses and maybe bigger areas of that. This was more of just to try it out.
The location of the bathroom to the hallway to the laundry room kind of gets tied in together with the ceramic tile that we chose. Normally we would stop the ceramic tile at the bathroom and then start hardwood into the hallway, flowing into the bedrooms. In this case, we expanded the tile from the bathroom into the hallway, into the laundry room, which was all, they're all water-based rooms that we sort of chose to unify that area of the house by continuing with the ceramic tile.
So tell us a little bit about your company and what's next?
Well, believe it or not, this is our 30th anniversary this year in 2021. We bought our first place in 1991, which was just around the corner on Brock Street. We didn't know very much about renovating houses and what it took to do that, but we jumped in both feet, and it took us 4 years to do so, but we finished it and it looked nice. We completed that, and now we've completed 37 houses, whether restoring the worst of the worst heritage houses, right up to building new houses that look like old heritage houses. We like to think that we're reinvesting in Brantford and making Brantford better with the houses that we fix up that are close to meeting destiny with a wrecking ball, to new houses that fit in with the neighborhoods and make the neighborhoods better.
Well, we're always looking for a house to renovate, and we're looking for a lot that we can build on. We have some design ideas that we would like to implement and build.
What I'd really like is a landmark lot somewhere on a main street in town so that everybody can see it as they drive by. We have some unique houses that we're wanting to recreate, and we'd like everybody to see them.
So if somebody wanted to be a part of your story or follow along on the journey, where do they go?
Well, we're on Facebook and Instagram, so you can find us at Dan Brown House Reconstruction on Facebook, Dan Brown House Reconstruction on Instagram. You can follow our journey. We post things about the work that we do and the things that we find and the places that we go to get the materials that we use in our builds and our restorations.
If you have any ideas of houses that you'd like to see saved or houses that you'd like to see us recreate, you can contact us and let us know, or just follow our journey.
One final question. I noticed that all of your projects have this big, bright turquoise door. What's the story behind that?
Nifty Turk was a gift from Dan to me that he picked the color when we were building Tollgate. And when I got home from work, the door had been painted that fabulous color.
I spent hours and hours looking at different colors online and with matching it with brick colors, and then just picked one and went with it.
So you could say you never know what's going on behind the turquoise door.
The turquoise door.
That's right.